Hey guys, welcome to the RatCast. This is Colby Coonrod, and I go by Rat. The Rat Talks Big Ten is a social media brand I created that revolves all around Big Ten football. Today, we're going to do a grueling matchup between Iowa versus Michigan. Today, I have my friend Kate here, a Michigan fan, and we're going to duke it out together, and we're going to trade minds, and we're going to decide who's going to win this game. All right, I got Cade here, and we're going to start today's podcast off talking about what we love about the Big Ten and what they do differently compared to other college football conferences. Cade, how about you go ahead and start us off?
I mean, I say it's pretty clear cut, and I think it's common that most people think this way, that the Big Ten has always been the most ground and pound, fundamental. It's all about execution. You're not going to win with the flashy plays or athleticism, with the exception of Ohio State. I feel like Ohio State's the only one that puts himself in a different category. They could fit into other conferences, but I feel the rest of the stretch of the Big Ten teams have always had to fit that mold of execution, fundamentals. You're not going to win on one play. It's going to be a consistent ground and pound game. And yeah, it's going to be a dogfight the whole way. I think that's different. You look at conferences like the SEC, Pac-12, you got blowouts all the time, high-scoring games. The Big Ten, you're going to have some of the best defenses in the country, low-scoring games, just battles. And I think that's what's the best about the Big Ten is you're going to have battles the whole way. Blood, sweat, and tears. I mean, it's cliche, but I think that really resembles the Big Ten more than any other conference.
I absolutely agree. Like I talked to Sean Callahan for a Nebraska writer, and he kind of said it a way that I would describe it. You know, he said the battle was won up front. And you see a lot of offensive linemen, defensive line getting drafted high in NFL drafts compared to like kind of what Kate said about, you know, running backs are hard-headed like Ibrahim from Minnesota. You know, he's a hard, gritty running back, but he's not drafted very high. You know, he's projected third round and stuff, but you see the Northwestern lineman, he's going to be a top 15 pick, just like Penning out of UNI, Iowa guy who's, you know, super hard-headed. And all right, now we're going to transition into the second question I wanted to hit is why we are fans of our respective team. Now, I'm an Iowa fan, Kate's a Michigan fan, and what kind of aspects to our teams do we enjoy the most? And as an Iowa fan, I love the way that they hold class. All right, Kirk Ferentz has been able to instill that in the team for such a long time. We're classy, and we're going to win games clean. But as someone who grew up playing football in high school, I was a cornerback, and I love defense. And what Iowa does with their special teams and with the cornerback room is just like they're turning the ball over. All right, everyone on that defense is going to be able to create a turnover that's going to give the offense the ball. Even though the offense of Iowa isn't always exciting, they're always going to have an opportunity to put points and be able to roll over teams because that defense allows them to have the ball more time of possession, and that's what's ultimately going to give Iowa wins. And that's why I enjoy them the most. They are top to bottom. They're all talented, and when offense, defense, or special teams on the field, there's a good chance someone's going to make a play. So never take an eye off the screen when I'm watching Iowa football.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Iowa's definitely one of the most disciplined teams by far that you could ever they're in the country consistently each year. But me personally, so this might sound crazy, but I grew up in an Iowa football family, so I do cheer for Iowa as well. But I also had family that was Michigan fans, and as I was growing up, I gained a liking to Michigan too. And yes, a little bandwagony, but Michigan has more on the line this year, so I'm going to cheer for them in this Iowa-Michigan battle. But I still do cheer for Iowa when they're not playing Michigan. Love to see Iowa win. Know a lot about them, know about Ferentz, and like you said, the class. Seeing Iowa walk out, and the players are always holding each other's hands, the wave. You rarely see undisciplined penalties such as like roughing the pass or stuff like that, or unnecessary roughness, stuff like that from out of Iowa. Very disciplined team. But what I like out of Michigan, especially this year, is that they're not at that level of Ohio State where it's just flashy, just athleticism. They're going to beat you with your athleticism. They're not there yet, but they're on that second tier. They're right behind them. And Michigan can give you that ground and pound because their run game is very solid, but they also can give you that flashy play. It's kind of the best of both worlds they got going on right now. And it's almost like they've adopted an underdog mentality over the last few years. Everybody's always trying to count Michigan out. Michigan's this, Michigan's that. They're overrated. Harbaugh needs to be fired. It just goes back and forth, and then they proved themselves last year. And I feel like they still have that underdog mentality that they're trying to overcome and trying to prove everybody wrong.
There's always holes to Michigan. And that's why they're always overrated. But I kind of like what Kate said about the Iowa Wave. Actually, that's something I experienced for the first time this year at the Iowa State game, and it was truly unbelievable. I'd recommend it to anybody as the opportunity to see that because, like we talked about class, you put both teams are on the sideline in the middle of the field, holding hands, waving. It's just great. Now we're gonna transfer into the nitty gritty of this podcast. Iowa defense versus the Michigan offense. Now, it's so easy to talk about the Iowa defense because they're one of the best ranked in the country for a reasonable cause. They got players that are highlighted in the draft right now, such as Jack Campbell, Riley Moss, and we got newcomers up like Cooper DeJean and Kevion Merriweather. And these are guys that are going to be stars in the NFL because they're, corn grown, and just like Big Ten, they're gonna be a huge impact to teams because they're so hard headed and they know how to be coached, and that's pretty much why. Yeah,
that's the biggest thing with Iowa, especially defensive players. I mean, consistently Iowa will just grab a 2-star from anywhere, and then turn them into an NFL player. Consistently, they'll do that over and over again, at least because of the discipline that they teach in and out. I mean, you see it with guys like Josie Jewell. If he got an offer, his only offer was the Luther College, and then he got one from Iowa, and now he's starting linebacker for the Broncos. And just consistently happens. They consistently turn 2-star prospects into NFL players. I think that's the biggest highlight for Iowa for sure.
So right now, Iowa is ranked number 5 in the country in total defense, with Minnesota running it right now at number 1. But right now, Iowa is holding passers to a 55 passing percentage with an average of 163 total yards of offense. Might be skewed due to South Dakota, Iowa State, and Nevada. Not very good teams, but when they ran into the Rutgers, they held their own. They're holding teams to only 1 passing touchdown in 4 weeks, which is unheard of. All right, and that's what I think Iowa is going to put into perspective against Michigan.
Yeah.
Blake Corum, great running back, Heisman candidate.
Probably the best running back in the country.
But when he runs into Iowa, it's going to be different. All right, we held no rushing touchdowns yet for a good reason.
Yeah.
Okay. And, defense has created 2 touchdowns in itself to the Iowa's offense of 4. Michigan's defense has 0 touchdowns and 2 safeties, one being the Jack Campbell. So a total of 7 turnovers. Iowa defense knows how to turn the ball over right now, and that's why Iowa's found their way back into the top 25 after a tough 3 games of putrid offense. But, they lead the Big Ten in the least amount of points against them. So I think when Michigan runs into the Iowa defense, they're not going to be prepared for it. And I just think it's something that, J.J. McCarthy is not going to know how to fix. He's not going to know how to beat it.
Yeah, he's young. I think, because as you said, Blake Corum could be the best running back in the country, but he lives off that big play. He's an explosive back. He's not necessarily a ground and pound back. He's an explosive back. He'll bust off a 50-yard touchdown here and there, and that's what he lives off of. And the thing about Iowa is that they always keep everything in front of them. They'll never let up that big play, rarely ever let up that big play. Their main thing is to keep everything in front of them, and if they can stop and take Corum out of the game and not let that big play happen, I think it is, as a Michigan fan, it's going to be rough for Michigan because J.J. McCarthy is a young quarterback. He tries to play perfect, which we saw last week at Maryland. Tried to play perfect. He kept missing the deep ball. He is a 5-star, though. He's got crazy potential, and he could break out any game. I just don't see that happening here at Iowa. Especially at Iowa, I just don't see it happening. I do think Michigan still has the edge, of course. And I think the biggest thing, we haven't touched on it, is that it is an 11 o'clock game. If it was a night game, I think Iowa's big favors here. But it is an 11 o'clock game. I think that does take into account because J.J. McCarthy's young, inexperienced on the road. I think it's his first road start. And it's against Iowa, which is a tough one to have. So it's a little concerning. I think we're definitely gonna see what he's made of when he gets out there. But if it was a night game, it'd be rough. But I think Michigan still does have the edge here.
Yeah. Even though JJ, being young, has thrown for a total of 693 passing yards while completing 80% of passes, which is crazy efficient. This guy doesn't make mistakes with 5 touchdowns and no picks. And Blake Corum right now has a total of 9 touchdowns, rushing, no receiving. And that's something that I found interesting when I looked at Blake because his receiving upside is little to none compared to his other 2 running backs behind him with Stokes and Edwards, or the receiving
Edwards.
backs.
And I don't know if Edwards is playing this week. He's been out the last 2 weeks, but Edwards is another guy. He's a 5-star. He played here and there last year. He was behind Corum and Haskins, but when he did play, I think he had one game where it's like five rushes or 5 receptions for 100+ yards and a touchdown. He's explosive. He can do similar things to Corum. So if he's playing, it could also be another thing that could give Iowa trouble. Again, I think Iowa is great at keeping everything in front of them. I don't see them letting up too many big plays. But if we do take it back to last year, and Iowa, again, had one of the best defenses in the country, Michigan seemed to be the first team that kind of broke their defense, broke it down, and got through it and cracked their defense because they put up 42 points on them. Corum was running loose. Haskins was running loose. They were letting up big play here and there. And if we take that into account, who knows? Maybe Michigan has it cracked, and Corum's going to run loose again. I don't see it happening twice in a row. Michigan, their offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator from last year left. They have new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator. So who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? But if we do take into account last year, they did break Iowa's defense.
Well, that could have been because it was late in the season. It was a
fair.
Big Ten championship is what it was.
It was 2 different teams.
And they had a way better defense last year with Aiden Hutchinson.
Yeah.
I think the Michigan defense right now is good. Not as good as last year. I mean, you saw what Maryland did to them. But
I think they have 4 returning starters on defense, 7 returning on offense, which if you take that into account again, 7 returning starters on offense. You got the same guys that kind of tore that Iowa defense up last year. And they might do it again on Saturday. Who knows what.
And back to the Michigan offense. What I've seen in Michigan is that, JJ is nice and he's very efficient. I have not seen a whole lot of. You don't really hear a lot about the Michigan receivers right now. I mean, they are pretty nice. With Ronnie Bell right now is leading receiving, 253 yards and a single touchdown.
Yep.
But I don't feel like they have enough star power and the wide receiver room to make up for what the defense has right now and has led up a passing touchdown. They are going to stop the run, and if they can break that run defense, then I'll give it to the Michigan offense at that point. Blake Corum, he's a dog, okay? But if they can't figure out how to break through the Hawkeyes front line, all right, they're going to have to hit Riley Moss, Cooper DeJean. All right, they got a lot of cornerbacks that could stop these, I guess, mid to high tier wide receivers that Michigan has.
I mean, Ronnie Bell is a guy. He tore his ACL in the first game for Michigan last year, so he wasn't with them that entire time. He wasn't with them against Iowa last year, and Michigan did return their other 2 starting wide receivers that also kind of tore that Iowa defense up, the Iowa secondary up a little bit. I think Ronnie Bell is just another factor that might give them problems in the passing game, similar to last year. And he's probably their best receiver. He was their best receiver coming into last year. He's probably Michigan's best receiver this year. That's a guy that could just change it a little bit. I mean, the receivers didn't seem to have too much trouble last year, and we're adding another, probably their best receiver now again this year. So I think that's just a positive for Michigan.
All right, well, if you were to tell Michigan to do one thing against Iowa to win this game, what would you tell them?
One thing.
What would you tell Michigan to attack?
I don't know. I'd say it's not on the offensive side. I think that's just gonna be.
So you think defense is gonna win the game?
I think defense is gonna have to win the game I think Iowa's gonna get their turnovers. Iowa always gets their turnovers. It's not surefire that Michigan's gonna get their turnovers. I think they had the capability to. I mean, especially because Iowa. I mean, we don't even want to get started on Iowa's offense.
Maybe we should.
Feature is just not a confident quarterback. Their receivers. Not doing them any justice either. Not too many athletic receivers that are more athletic than the guys Michigan has in their secondary. I mean, Michigan guys are just I mean, they're more athletic, they're more talented than Iowa's guys, and that's just how it is. Iowa guys might be more disciplined, they might play smarter football, but Michigan guys are always going to out athlete Iowa guys. And
I mean, that's perfect transition because we're going to transition talking about the Iowa offense attacking the Michigan defense. And, there's a lot of talk about the Iowa offense, not necessarily all great. Right now, Spencer Petras is starting quarterback, and he's throwing for 524 yards, throwing almost nearly 50% of his passes, 1 passing touchdown, 2 picks. He is not put it together yet for Iowa, but I feel like, he has progressed slowly through the last 3 games, and I think he's going to put something together week 4 against Michigan. It has been a whole lot of just targeting Sam Laporta, who has right now 154 yards, hasn't found the end zone. I think he will. Saturday. But, yeah, I think if Peters ain't going to win, it's going to be our backs, Caleb Johnson. Right now he's got 104 yards and 2 touchdowns, averaging 6 yards carry. I mean, right now he's going to lead the backfield again for Iowa, and he's kind of going to open things up. And I think it's against the Michigan defense, it's going to be hit or miss for Iowa, and I think they have an ability to open up some things, but it's going to be tough for me to think that Iowa is going to put up at least 3 touchdowns. I think that seems a little unlikely, but I feel like the defense could hold Iowa offense true.
Exactly. That's why it definitely probably going to come down to the turnover battle, because Iowa's defense, I think, can contain Michigan's offense, but I don't really see Iowa moving the ball that great on Michigan's defense. But I think another thing, too, is that Iowa consistently every year always plays their competition. They play to who they're playing. If they need a score, they're going to find a way to score. I feel that just how it's gone as I've watched them over the years. They're going to play to their competition.
Yeah, when I look at the Michigan defense, we're looking at the stats here, and 3 picks, 3 forced fumbles, 0 touchdowns, 11 sacks on the defense compared to the Hawks' 12. And numbers I believe to be slightly skewed compared to Iowa's non-conference games. Michigan's non-conference games were Colorado, Hawaii, and Connecticut.
UConn.
Right. Through 4 weeks, 3 weeks of football, those teams have combined 2 wins.
Yeah, 3 of the worst
That's not
teams.
great.
3 of the worst teams
They could have
in college
probably
football.
played. Yeah.
What Michigan did, just destroy each and every one of them. But their one real test Michigan had against Maryland, the defensive line struggled. They didn't really get much pressure on the quarterback. They ended the game with 3 sacks, but that was all on the last drive against Maryland's last backup quarterback. I mean, you take guys like Aiden Hutchinson and David Ajabo off of them, and they're in the league now. I mean, you got young guys on the defensive line. They're going to have to learn. Maryland was running right through Michigan that front last week, too. The run game was effective. Get about 6 yards on first down every time. And if Maryland can do that, Iowa's probably going to be able to do that as well. But, I mean, Maryland's pass game is light years better than Iowa's as it is right now.
I would agree. Yeah, it was super interesting how Maryland was able to put a plethora of drives together against the Michigan defense. And time will tell kind of where the Maryland offense stands, but they were very efficient against Michigan, which makes me believe that the Iowa offense, they're smart. They're smart over there. They're going to be able to find holes just like Maryland did. And if the Hawkeyes could just put a couple drives together, which they've been desperately trying to do the last 3 weeks, I think they have a chance to win offensively, and it will be a great telling kind of where their offense is going to be the rest of the season, because, yeah, you are running into a Michigan juggernaut, but you need offense in the Big Ten. Yeah, the defenses are going to do their thing, but, defense wins championships, offense is going to win the game. You need to win games to get to the championship, and if Iowa can't win games offensively, then they're not going to be big in the West.
And you might be right. It might only take a couple drives. That's all Iowa might need, is just a couple drives where they get it down the field and score touchdowns, do what they need to do, not let the defense consistently outscore them. That's just not going to work against the number 4 ranked team in the country. It might work against the Rutgers, but it's not going to work against Michigan. Yeah, I think it might just only take a couple drives, but I don't at this point, I don't think I have confidence in Iowa in their ability to do that. Michigan's going to be the best defense they faced all year. I mean, Rutgers did have a good defense, but I think Michigan's more talented, more explosive. Even though they're young, inexperienced, I think they're going to cause more problems for Michigan's offense than any other defense has so far this year. But that might be all it takes, a couple drives. Because I don't see Iowa's defense giving up too many points to Michigan. Even though Michigan's offense is explosive, Iowa contains, and that's what they're known for. As Harbaugh said, they out-fundamental you, they out-execute you, and that's what Iowa does. So, yeah, I think you're right. It might come down to Iowa's offense. That might be the biggest outlying factor here.
Absolutely. Iowa special teams right now has been top of the country. Torrey Taylor, second time Big Ten Special Teams Player of the Week. That guy knows how to swing games with his foot, the Aussie. He is a big-time player that really helps Iowa maintain their opponents on offense, and that's something that I think he will be able to use against Michigan, put them back in their own field. Pin them inside the 10, pin them inside the 15. That's something that's really going to be game-changing, especially when you need JJ to put on 80-yard drive, and then against an Iowa defense, that doesn't happen often. You don't see guys put 80 to 90-yard drives together against the Iowa defense, and that's something that I think is going to be game-changing and that they really need to highlight. I've never seen a fan base be so excited to see their punter on the field. It's insane. Iowa State game, every single time Torrey hit the field, MVP. Everybody loves Taylor right now, and I feel like he can definitely exploit Michigan that way. And, you saw what happened with Maryland. Guy catches the opening kickoff off his face. Michigan gets the ball within 5-yard line.
And that ended up being the deciding touchdown of the game.
Yeah, stuff like that. Special teams doesn't talk about enough, but it can absolutely win games, and it can definitely swing them. And if Iowa can use that to their advantage, I feel like that's another reason to give Iowa the edge here, even though their offense is blacklustering. They have two-thirds of the football that they can use to win them the game compared to Michigan's. I don't think so. I don't think Michigan has defense and the special teams to stop Iowa. If it needs stopping, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. Torrey Taylor, he's going to play on Sundays. He's probably the best punter in the country. He's going to pin them inside the 10. They're going to win. They're going to win the field position battle. That's most likely to happen. But I don't think the crowd cheering MVP at your punter is a good thing. I don't think that's going to win you games if your best player is your punter. And yeah, I mean, you're right. J.J. McCarthy's a true sophomore. It's his first road test. It's against a good Iowa team, a good Iowa defense, a stout Iowa defense, which isn't going to make that many mistakes. And it's going to be hard for him to put together 90-yard drives consistently. But if he can, again, squeeze one or two of those out of there, that might be the game. Because I don't see Iowa's offense scoring that much. But yeah, I agree. They're going to win the field position battle. But that's probably because Iowa's offense isn't doing anything like usual.
Whoa, that was crazy. Like usual. Okay, well, now we can debate about it because we're going to hit the nitty-gritty. Final question, overview of this game. The game is set to an over-under of 42 points right now. And we're going to discuss, will it hold and who's going to win this game. Right now, I see the game kind of finishing around that 42 mark, kind of mid-20s for each team. I have it 24-21 Iowa. They're going to win the football game.
It's not a bad score. Yeah, I'm kind of torn about the over-under. I want to say, I feel like everybody expects it to be under, so that means it's going to be over. So I'd go with the over. And I think my prediction, and I know I said it's going to be a low-scoring affair, but I could see it being, I'm going to go with 27-14 Michigan. I don't think Iowa scores more than 2 touchdowns. I think Michigan breaks it open at the end of the game when the defense has been on the field for 90% of the game. They're going to be tired. You saw it against Iowa State. They held Iowa State the entire game, but they're on the field the entire time. And they're going to end up giving up touchdowns. There's no way it's sustainable for a defense to play that discipline and be on the field for that long. It's just not going to happen. I see it being a close game through the first half. Iowa's going to give Michigan troubles here and there. J.J. McCarthy's going to get rattled, but they're going to figure it out. They're going to pull away at the end of the game. they're going to end up making more plays than Iowa. See, 27-14, which doesn't make much sense because I just said the over, so we're going to go the under now. Yeah, but I'm going 27-14.
1 point under the under. Yeah, that's not a over might not be a bad idea either because Iowa hasn't faced any teams that have an offense themselves. South Dakota 3, Iowa State 7, 0 Nevada, 10 from the Rutgers. Iowa doesn't get the ball back that quickly. So with Michigan scoring, that might give them more opportunities to throw the football around. If that possession is going to be 3 and out, not that great, but they'll have more opportunities that way, I think. So maybe taking the over here is not a bad take. But yeah, 24-21 for me. Iowa's going to squeak it out. Maybe final finish, field goal, seconds on the clock. Iowa City is going to be rocking this weekend. And, I don't think Michigan's be able to take that.
Yeah. I mean, I could definitely, see it being over. I think that too. I think Michigan has been known when it's these big-time games with not much on the line because Iowa's the epitome of playing not to lose instead of playing to win. They're going to play their competition. So Iowa, I think, has always passed games against good big teams where they have to lay it on the line to win the game. They're going to open up the playbook. They're going to open up their offense, and that might give them more opportunities to push the ball down the field and score more than they usually do. They're going to have to take chances. That's the only way they're going to win the game. They have to take chances, or else Michigan is going to pull out ahead of them.
Absolutely. Yeah. Iowa likes to upset these teams, high-ranked teams, top 5. I think in the last 10 years at home, they're 5-1, or 5 wins, 1 loss in the last several years against ranked teams at Iowa City. So, yeah, look for that. Iowa's going to put on a show. Michigan's going to do their thing, too. It's going to be a very exciting game Saturday at 11 o'clock. We'll see you guys there. Thanks for watching.